Let me get set up here a little bit. Well, it's nice to see you again, everyone. I don't feel like I've actually been here much in the last, even speaking in the last several weeks. I don't feel like I've done a lot of that, so it's okay. I think I have 7 of the next 9, so it's all right. You'll see a bit of me. It's okay. Which means that I'm 9 weeks away from holidays, which is awesome. So anyway, that's another story. Hey, wasn't it great this morning to see all the generations of people worshipping? I don't need to say anything else about them. I just love watching Colin and Kyan, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Good job, Chook. Well done. Nobody else call her Chook. That won't go down so well. Is there anybody here who comes from Bathurst or has any connection to Bathurst before I just have a slight dig at them? No, I'm not. It's okay. A couple of weeks ago, most of you will have seen the Bathurst 1000. It was on the TV out here in the foyer, and you might even seen it at your place at home. One of the cars driven by a guy named Chaz Mostert ended in mechanical failure, and poor old Chaz could do nothing apart from just park it on the side of the road, walk through the safety barrier, climb a fence, and everything else. And he got over towards this bunch of fans, and the commentator from TV got it right. The commentator said, and I quote, "How long will it be before somebody here at Bathurst offers Chaz a beer?" And I swear within about 10 seconds, I don't know if anyone saw the news, but perfect Australian, what you would kind of expect, I guess, and maybe this is where I'm having a dig at Bathurst, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's within about 10 seconds, this fan approaches Chaz, hands him a cold beer, and Chaz just smiles for the camera, opens it up, and off we go. And it's just kind of what you expect on some weird level. And I want to ask a similar question today about something else. What is it that we expect in terms of, when it comes to this life of faith or finding our identity in Christ, which has probably been the bigger question of this whole series, The Search for Identity. Do we expect the journey of faith is all going to be fairly predictable, easy? We can just get handed a nice cold drink on occasion and relax. It's all just going to be a nice, safe, predictable journey of church, attendance and service and Bible reading, and it's all just going to be fairly what we would expect, cruisy and encouraging, or do we expect a daily, intense, unrelenting, and dare I say, unseen fight going on that we are invited to stand firm in and remain committed to Jesus in a world that doesn't like that idea? So today's Bible reading, I think, is one of those important reminders for us where that actually shouldn't come as any surprise, I don't think, to anybody. But let's face it, in the West, maybe even in Australia, we probably find this hard to notice, don't we? That there is the spiritual opposition is I'm going to call it an ever-present reality. And yes, I mean even within the church, because let's face it, on a purely human level, most of us walked down the footpath today. We see a blue building with some paint that needs some painting soon. We see a nice welcome team. We see a relatively middle class, mostly normal bunch of people, I guess. We see on a human level the quality of the coffee, the quality of the preacher, the quality of the worship team, and we can look at all that sort of stuff on some level, when actually what I would suggest to you is we're actually entering a war zone, where we are proclaiming the arrival and the future reign of a king who one day will return victorious for his people and end the war. But until that day, we are well and truly up against an enemy who seeks to devour and, dare I say, destroy, or is intent on at least feeding doubt into the victory of the King. And I'm going to share something this morning that probably has the capacity to either A, freak you out and make you think I'm crazy, or B, maybe just bring some awareness to what we are doing on a Sunday. And I don't quite know how this will go, but we'll find out. In the middle of June, we had a great service one Sunday. We had a great service planned. We had a good worship team. I had spent that week a lot of time sensing a need to pray specifically against the spirits of our age. Affluence, pride, apathy, self-righteousness, all of those things, and praying, I guess, for the kingdom alternatives: humility, passion for Jesus, freedom, deliverance, all of those sort of things. And that was what somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago, what do you do most of the week? And that week was an intense one. And you could feel the weight of it on some level. It was a week also where we were in the middle of making a decision and bringing a recommendation to the board that ended up being Noah's role. Hey, Noah. And just really, I guess, prayerfully seeking what God would do in that week, and it all was sort of coming that week. Worship practice was pretty good. I thought my message was probably the best one I have written. If I could give you my last 20, that one there was the one that I would suggest is by far the best. Okay? Now, I don't know if anyone else would agree with me. That's okay. Sunday morning, somebody was sick. We had to do a couple of last-minute changes. That always happens. I think Joel hit a kangaroo on the way in. There's some other sort of stuff going on. And despite everything going mostly to plan and looking good and sounding great, you could just feel on another level that we're hitting a wall. We are just hitting a wall. And the sermon did not have the impact that I thought it would, and that's okay. But Amanda and I went home. Amanda was leading worship that day, and we sat down, unusually a little bit drained after worship, which we're not usually, and just flat, having given our all, but we just had this question: what just happened? Now, driving home from prayer meeting that night, the signs are up for the Psychic Expo down in town. And maybe, look, there's no easy gauge to sort of spell this out, but here's the thing. Maybe there was an opponent who really didn't like what I was praying about all week. Maybe there was an opponent who really didn't like what our church was going to do in terms of extending and bringing freedom and growing and, God willing, Jesus to a whole next generation. Maybe there was somebody who was not pleased with what we were doing. And we just, man, you felt it. And I share this with a little bit of caution and without any judgment. Because I do just have a question in the back of my mind. I wonder how many people went to church that day, had a great time, thought it was a great time of positive community and a wonderful service, and just didn't notice. I think it's quite possible. I think it's quite simple and probably easy to do. And I was really grateful that week, probably for the people who were praying in the prayer room afterwards. There's a couple of people who reached out during the week saying, hey, we could see what was going on. Just, not really see, but you could feel it. I'm becoming increasingly grateful for people who, I think Amelia and others, they come in Sunday morning at 8:30 and just start praying, and I need all the help I can get. So I'm good with that. I know some of that happens during the week. I know some of the people even look at our rosters and see who's worship leading and just pray for them and uphold them. That's a really good thing. What I would say to the church is this: how about we get in the habit of looking a little bit deeper than what we can just see, and not super spiritualizing everything, but quite often there is a lot more going on than we can point a finger at or understand and realise. And maybe one of the greatest temptations is that we ignore it, we minimise it, or we just don't notice it. When I can assure you, I think into year 9 of pastoring, I've probably just become more and more aware of it. And I don't know what will happen in when you get to year 10 and all that sort of thing, but we'll figure it out. I guess today's passage is a reminder for me of a couple of just to take notice of the spiritual opposition that can happen in some places in our lives and in our church, and it's an invitation for us to stand firm. The first place I want to just talk about is the daily battle with disillusionment. Let's face it. Everything kingdom related comes with an opponent who would love to convince you that what you're doing doesn't really matter. Wouldn't he? I think churches do great stuff. Churches begin great things with great energy and great ideas and optimism about stuff. But what happens over time is eventually, after you put your heart and soul into it and you put more effort into it and you put your best of your time and all those things into it, it often doesn't have the income or the outcome. It doesn't have the result that you sort of on some level think it should. And I think sometimes it works great, but other times you're sitting there going, it's not working, it's not being effective, people aren't seeing the fruit of this, we're not seeing the fruit of this, it's just hard, nobody is coming, maybe I should give up. That sort of line of thinking does not take much to get into any ministry in any church, and it does not take much to get into any Christian. Let's just be honest about it. And I think the fight for the fight to stand firm in the wave of disillusionment, quite frankly, is almost an endless one for every Christian, especially when it comes to prayer. Unless we are reminded on a consistent basis that perhaps, like the Bible says, our prayers are powerful and effective. I'm going to share 3 things this morning just to encourage you that prayer works. And this is against, for me, a backdrop of disillusionment. It's not working the way I think it should. Everyone okay? So maybe I'm being a little bit more honest this morning. Okay, we have an amazing playgroup ministry here on a Thursday morning, and one of the constant prayers for the last 5 years has been pretty much we want people from playgroup to meet Jesus. We have prayed. I think this year over the course of a fair bit of time, praying for more Christian families to come, and God bless him. God's provided, right? We started, I think, with 1 Christian family this year, and a whole bunch of non-Christian families, 1 or 2. I think we're currently at 8, which is fantastic. So God's answered that prayer. But the constant thing in those weeks of prayer has always been people to come to meet Jesus in some way. I recently got talking to a family who are somewhat new to the church and probably just new to this idea of faith. They've been coming to playgroup for a while and just got, they were, I think, given a Bible by a family member, got reading it over the course of some time. They began discovering this person named Jesus who just quite honestly sounds like somebody we should follow. And on some level, I want to just explain, this person died for me, this person rose for me, this person is real for me. This is just people putting into words what's going on in their head, I guess. There was, and this conversation that I had, that the people explained essentially what happened was, we were at the playgroup Father's Day barbecue here on a Thursday night in September. That night, the family got talking to people here about faith and just their journey of making sense of all of these things. And they decided that night, I don't know the specifics of this, but there was a decision made that night before they left. There is something about this place. People seem mostly normal. We want to follow this Jesus. And we'll get along to church and check it out soon. Those people are in our church today. It gets better. Just wait. I heard this story about 6 weeks after the event, and I went back in my calendar. The night of the Father's Day barbecue was our week of prayer. And that night of the Father's Day barbecue, Amy, our office manager, and I had teed up. What we were going to do is we're going to take the slots in the prayer room that week, and we're going to pray specifically for the salvation of playgroup families. Amen. So on a random Thursday night, while we're in the prayer room, feeling a little bit disillusioned because it's quite a big prayer, and we're not really sure how God's going to do it, and we're not even sure that he wants to do it, and we're not even sure he's able to do it. Out in this room here, God is doing it. Yeah. You think he doesn't answer prayer? I'm going to tell you, I got off the phone that night after realising all this stuff, and my simple response was, I will resolve before God for the next 5 years to be the same mad, crazy pastor I have been, that keeps praying and keeps calling the church to prayer if it means one more family come to Jesus. On a side note, number 2, I heard from another church this week who have been part of that joint 24/7 prayer event down at Benalla. They have just faithfully joined in the week of prayer, taken the morning slot. They all get together every morning of the week and just pray for their church, pray for salvations, pray for Jesus to do his work. For the first time in several years, that church is growing, and that church is seeing people come to Jesus. And I also just quietly looked this week at my list of prayers that I started the year with. I always start a year with a list of prayers for the church. And I've got to be honest, this year has been a slog, and this year I've still got a couple of big ones that are still there. But I've got to say, two-thirds of them are done. I share all that just to simply encourage you that if you are feeling disillusioned today, it's normal. Yeah? It is normal, and things often don't work out the way you think they should. But I would like to remind you that while the fight is real and while it is going on, I'd also like to remind you that God is faithful and God's doing his work. Let's get to the second battle, the battle with disunity. Amanda got good fun. Amanda got reading this week in John 17 where Jesus, before he leaves the earth, prays for his future church. And he doesn't pray for buildings. He doesn't pray for pastors. He doesn't pray for them to be nice, loving, safe communities, although they should be. He prays for their unity. He prays for these churches to actually have the spirit of unity, to actually work together, despite being all very, very different, to actually become one, working for a kingdom that is far bigger than any of them. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one this morning, but can I just make an observation? I as a kid, grew up in church and went to plenty of meetings. Those meetings were meant to bring consultation and build consensus about things. They ended in not so much consensus and no consultation, I don't think. They ended often in disagreement. They often ended with going way too long. And what I have realised is just quietly, I reckon spiritual warfare, quite frankly, is one of the quiet underlying reasons why church unity is so hard to come by. Because our opponent has no concept or no desire that the church works together. And all of us have let's face it, a preferred idea or an ideal vision about how things should be. And I am not going to stand here this morning and tell you that I'm right all the time, because I can assure you I am not. But what I have realised, I think, is that God has something far bigger in mind for a whole community, and it is often really bigger than what one church can do. And I'd like, and I share this with some honesty this morning, and I'm not quite sure. I also hold the right to change it all tomorrow. This is just what I'm feeling right now. Okay. I'm not sure that God is necessarily interested in just seeing our church grow, although I think He is. Okay, what if God was after something bigger? What if God, rather than one young adults group working across a bunch of churches, was after a young adults movement of every church? What if rather than one prayer meeting on a Sunday or 1 week of prayer that involves a couple of churches, God was actually after a prayer movement that impacted the whole community? And we also, just a quiet observation, we have a lot of Christians in this town who don't attend a church. And that really bothers me. And I'm not saying they should all just come here, because that's not the answer to that. But is there a way to actually unite them around a common vision for prayer and a hunger that Jesus would move in this community again? What if God was after something bigger than just us? What if God was after something far, far, far more significant? What if rather than just having a pastor to do this, or a leader to change that, or a person to run this, God actually had His eye on raising up a whole generation of people who would one day He could send and lead churches all over the place? What if God had a far bigger vision about what He wanted to do in a community, and we're concerned about what type of carpet we've got? I don't propose I'm always going to get this right, but what I would say this morning is perhaps this: the enemy of working together for something bigger often is micromanaging stuff that doesn't matter. So maybe let's keep our eyes on the prize. Let's keep our eyes on the prize of working for something far greater than just our church succeeding. All right? I'll probably a lot more to be said on that. Last is the daily battle with disconnection. The verse, the devil prowls around looking for someone to devour, kind of reminds me of David Attenborough a little bit. You know, those whole nature documentaries that no one wants to watch where the lion comes to chase an animal and take him out. And I don't like watching those shows. I'm not sure anybody here who does. Maybe there are some. But we all know in those documentaries who is the person who is most at risk. It's the animals standing by themselves. The person who is at the most danger with no help, no accountability, separated from one another and standing by themselves. Isolation just makes them a whole bunch easier to be lunch. Yeah? And I think there is a danger here to be explained. And I, as a pastor, I worked a lot of Sundays. I worked a lot of Sundays in my previous job, and I'm never going to get religious about church attendance, but can I just suggest that regular church engagement on some level, and I mean intentionally growing together, serving the mission together, being encouraged together, could not be more essential against that sort of enemy. Yeah, I shared before in our series this search for identity that often the whole thing sounds really individual, doesn't it? The search for identity, it sounds like it's all about me, you know? And Peter's letter wasn't to one person. Peter's letter was to a whole bunch of churches. But, yeah, I remember probably my best sermon, I think it was probably that day. He wasn't talking about individual living stones filled with the presence of God who were sitting by themselves. I think what Peter actually had in mind was a wall of people who Jesus was holding together like cement, who were moving together, growing together, taking ground together. And I think honestly what happens in the busyness of life and just the complexity of relationships and today's love of surface stuff like technology and everything else, and just the fact that relationships take hard work, they take maturity, they take commitment, it's uncomfortable and it's time consuming. And I think it's a lot easier actually to run away, stay in hiding on some level and stay disconnected than it is to fight for, rather than commit, join, stay and fight for the freedom of the person next to you. I just think that working together and that growing together could not be more important. So what might be Peter's encouragements to followers of Jesus who are fighting this daily battle? I just want to mention three very quickly because hopefully it just makes sense. I think the first one is as God's people, stay humble. Stay humble. Verse 6 and 7. Humble yourselves under the mighty power of God. Give all your worries and cares to him, for he cares for you. Peter is always reminding us about whose power to operate in. And maybe if we spend all our time operating in ourselves, we don't notice there's a whole other battle going on. I think there's a constant reminder, whose spirit are you filled with? Whose power are you working in? And Peter is inviting us to grow into that sort of identity more and more. Number two, when you're feeling weak, stand firm and stand firm together. Yeah. Verse 9, stand firm, be strong in your faith, knowing that the whole family of believers all over the world. The tendency is just to assume that everybody else on the surface has it together and I'm the only one feeling this. Yeah? And that is not real. Okay? Nobody else has it together. You don't have it together, but you are filled with a spirit that is very different. And maybe if I'm not the only one struggling here, and so maybe that means I should be willing to ask for help. Maybe that means that in the temptation to believe something that is not true, or to let us assume that it's not working, that maybe remember our primary identity and have the boldness to ask or pray with somebody. I just said about humility. If you feel like the battle for disillusionment is something that is very real for you, be humble enough to pray with somebody about it. Number 3, keep your eyes on the prize. And the prize, my friends, is Jesus himself. Verse 10, remember where this is all going. Verse 10, after you have suffered a little while, he will restore, support, strengthen you and place you on a firm foundation. I just want to finish by acknowledging the fact that all of us, to some extent, I think, face... You know what? It's tiring living in a world of darkness, and it is tiring living in a world of disillusionment. And it's tiring hearing that news that there is a kind of lion lurking around looking for someone to devour. And what I just felt myself wanting to say this morning is this. I just want to read these words from Revelation chapter 5. The Lion of the tribe of Judah. You know where this is going. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, the heir to David's throne, has won the victory. There is a... Against the lion you think you are facing, I want to tell you this morning, there is a bigger lion. There is a far bigger lion who is fighting your battles for you this morning. If you think you're disillusioned, there is a far bigger lion on your side. That lion has already won the battle of the greatest battle of all, which is the sin that separates you from him. And at the cross, he's introduced this kingdom of light, and we can be encouraged today that Jesus will return one day for his people and take the victory that is his. So stand firm in the fight, stand strong in the fight, stand strong together, and walk in the victory that the Lion of Judah offers. Let me just pray, and let me also just say quite quietly, if you have never done so, why not today determine to know Jesus, to follow Jesus, to run from the kingdom of darkness, and to walk in the kingdom of light?